Hello and welcome to the webinar number 41 of the Zebra BI webinar series, where we discuss actionable reporting topics, best practices for Power BI, Excel, and PowerPoint. All right, let me start sharing my screen. And we're live. So, welcome to our webinar. This time, we've got a really exciting topic. We've managed to collect and perform financial analysis, benchmarking analysis of some of the Fortune 500 companies and provided a real life and live Power BI dashboard and report with lots of tips and tricks that will illustrate how to perform benchmarking analysis and deep financial analysis and how to take advantage of that to include that benchmarking data in your own reports and dashboards that will help gain additional insights in comparison to maybe your competitors, to understand the market trends and so on. Not many companies in the world are actually using external data. Most of the time we are actually reporting on our internal financials, internal sales and so on. And we simply neglect, the data, the very useful external data that is actually available publicly on different websites. And so today we'll share some of the best practices, how to do that, how to get that data, and how to use it in order to perform deep financial analysis with lots of financial KPIs, how to do all that in Power BI. Let me show you what I mean. All right, let's switch to the Power BI. All right, here it is. Okay, so here's what I mean. We're in Power BI Desktop now, and the first thing we're going to do is just collect the financial statements. So your basic income statements, balance sheets, and cash flow. And we've done that for a couple of companies, a couple of Fortune 500 companies like Walgreens, Walmart, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, General Motors, Tesla, Nike, Adidas. So this is a live report now, and it pulls data from actually Wall Street Journal websites. I'll show you in a couple of minutes. And now we've got, the P&L analysis, so the income statement for the different companies, some retail companies, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, and, automotive, General Motors, Tesla, and so on. And as you can see, we've got income statements, we've got balance sheet, cash flow, all the basic financial data is here. And of course, we've added the basic KPIs like gross margin as a percent of revenue, EBIT margin as a percent of revenue, EBITDA margins, and so on, right? But this is only the beginning, right? We also put in comments that explain, why is there some growth and so on. We've added nice features in Power BI with tooltips that actually help answer some additional questions. Then some nice little tricks like this logo here will, change when the user selects a company and so on. But as I've said, this is only a beginning. In the next part, we'll actually do a comparison of those companies. So here's Coca-Cola versus PepsiCo, side by side, or GM versus Tesla, Nike versus Adidas. All right, in terms of income statements, balance sheets, and so on. However, we'll not stop at your basic financial reports, right? We'll also add financial KPIs to do even better comparisons. All right, comparisons like this one, where we compare multiple KPIs, between a pair of companies, right? Or something like this, where we've got basically all all the key financial KPIs that we will calculate using DAX from the financial statements, things like net debt to EBITDA, inventory turnover, financial leverage, asset turnover, and so on. So the very important KPIs, we'll do a benchmark, and we'll do it in a way that the final solution, the final report dashboard will be fully interactive. So for example, I can select two companies. Sorry, right. Something wrong with my clicks here. All right, like that. So control click, of course. Yeah, like that. Or Coca-Cola versus Pepsi, and we'll just analyze all this information across different types of financial KPIs, also like percentage KPIs, EBITDA margins, inventory as a percent of sales, working capital as a percent of sales, and so on. We'll analyze the growth trends, right? So what's the growth across the different KPIs like EBITDA, EBIT, revenue growth, and so on. And yeah, like deep financial analysis. So hopefully this is something, that sounds interesting, sounds something that you might want to use in your own company to benchmark your company against your competitors, or just, with the industry averages and things like that. All right, so now how are we gonna do this? So first of all, I'm Andre. I'm the founder and CEO at Zebra BI. I'm Microsoft Most Valuable Professional alumni member and an IBCS, IBCS certified consultant. But this webinar was prepared actually by a wider team here at Zebra BI. So I've got two of my colleagues together with me who will help me go through the agenda and present today. So we'll dive into financial benchmarking. Actually, I'll show you like a playbook of everything that we've collected with some recommendations, and then we'll dive into the solution. In the end, we'll share the resources and download links, and there will be a Q&A in the end. So my first colleague here is Mark. Mark is helping with the questions and has also prepared the financial model and the web scraping. So Mark, would you present yourself, please?
Yes, hello everyone. Also from my side, I hope you will find this webinar interesting. And as always, we'll be monitoring the questions, answering your questions in the chat. So yeah, keep them coming. We're looking forward to this one.
Great, thanks, Mark. And then my next colleague is our head consultant here at Zebra BI, Tilan.
Hi, and also from my side, yeah, it's true. I was also involved in preparation of this webinar, as I do have some experiences from financial analysis, especially from financial advisory as part of KPMG team. Yeah, so feel free if you have any finance-related questions, feel free to raise them, and I'll try to answer them as soon as I can.
Thanks so much, Tilan. So yeah, we have a really strong team here now. So Tilan is an ex KPMG consultant, Mark as a deep Power BI consultant, myself, and also a couple of other colleagues. So hopefully, what we'll show next, will make sense to you and will be practical enough for you to get ideas and then maybe implement parts of this in your reporting, make it more actionable. All right, so we've done so many things when preparing this webinar that I actually had to prepare like a summary for myself, how to present this, all the stuff that we were doing. And yeah, so basically I came up with the playbook of how to do financial benchmarking, right? So number one, you need to scrape financial data from somewhere, right? So there are actually a couple of sources on the internet where you can get the data. So we decided finally to actually take the Wall Street Journal financial data from Wall Street Journal. So I'll show you the website and so on. So all the data that you'll see here is publicly available from the Wall Street Journal website. Of course, we've used PowerQuery in Power BI to scrape the data. So basically web scraping, connecting to the website, and then, of course, extracting, cleaning, loading, and so on, right? So we used PowerQuery for that. So in the next step, we prepared the financial model in Power BI. We have some fact tables, some dimensions around it. We pulled in comments, so we have comment tables. We created a lot of DAX measures. We put it in a separate table by using DAX and switch statement and so on. So that's going to be interesting to see the model. Then in the next step, we have used the Zebra BI visuals, especially first the Zebra BI tables visual to visualize the income statements and cash flow and balance sheet reports, and to calculate, the very first KPIs like margins, EBITDA margins, gross profit margins, net income margins, and so on. Then next, we actually brought in and again web scraped the brand logos, for that little trick to change the logo in the report from the website called Brandfetch, where you can get images of the logos. So that was the next step. Then we put this all together and started calculating the financial KPIs, right? And we have everything like, net debt and working capital and so on and so on. So there's some DAX involved, but we'll also share the DAX code and also some cheat sheets with the formulas and, explaining the formulas and so on. So after that, once we have all the KPIs, the financial model, all the dimensions, we can start performing, some deeper benchmark analysis. And again, we've used Zebra BI visuals for that, mostly the Zebra BI charts visual. All right. So actually, I think we really used, Power BI to the max, and also our own visuals to the max, because you really need like advanced visualization so that comparisons are very clean and understandable, that the scaling is correct, that you understand, the proportions in the data, so that the users can actually compare what they see visually and understand immediately the impact of the growth rates of the values, of the financial values, and so on, right? And in the end, also, we've added the comments to explain why certain categories are, rising, declining, and so on, right? So that's basically, in short, in seven points, what I would describe as, the key components for doing the financial benchmarking. So, okay, so hopefully this illustrates the process. And now let's start with the Power BI and I'll try to explain how did we actually do all this. All right, so first things first, you need the data. Okay, so let me go to our webinar, my browser page, and all right, so the first thing is the Wall Street Journal website that has a great section in the website. It's all about the financial markets here, and you can see the data for the financial market by using the quotes. So if you go to www.wvsg.com/market data/quotes, and then you enter the ticker symbol, you will get to the financials. So here you can see the income statement, balance sheet, cash flow. So this is an already formatted report. Okay, so it has accounts, sales, revenue, right? and also some calculated KPIs like sales growth and so on, right? And it's actually a multi-level hierarchy of those accounts, like cost of goods sold, that are, comprised of cost of goods sold, excluding D&A, and then a separate line item for the depreciation and amortization expense. So in Europe, this would probably go much lower, but we have not changed the structure of the data, so we simply used the same structure in the end. But of course, you can also reshuffle the accounts if you want a slightly different sequence of accounts in your reports and so on. Right. So, and then of course, gross income, SG&A expenses, EBIT, and so on, all down to net income. And then there are some calculated KPIs already here on this report, right? What is the first thing that you need to remember when you're pulling the data in, when you will connect to data like this, to data tables like this? You need to make absolutely sure that you import only the so-called additive measures into your Power BI, into your Power BI model, right? And then calculate the non-additive measures in your data model in Power BI. What do I mean by that? What is an additive measure and a non-additive measure, right? So the sales, the revenue, this is an additive measure because you can just add the revenue, let's say, from year 21 to 22, right? You can add that, and then you have a sum of revenue for both years, and this is a valid figure, or can sum the month into quarters into a year, and so on. Okay, so these are the base measures, right, that are additive, and those we will actually use. So scrape, read from the website, load into Power BI. But then things like sales growth, right? These are non-additive measures. So you cannot just sum up this percentage and this percentage to understand what is like the, cumulative growth across 2 years or things like that, right? In order for Power BI to actually calculate correctly things like percentages, indexes, and so on, you need to use DAX formulas for that. So not import those lines, but then recreate the formula in your DAX model. All right, so those are the basics. Just don't import percentages and try to sum up percentages. It's, I just have to say that would be a rookie mistake. So here's a heads up, don't do that. All right, and also some indexes and so basically we need to filter out the basic data, and then we'll calculate the financial KPIs again in the Power BI model. All right, so this is the website. So basically you just copy the web address, go to Power BI, and you get the data in your Power BI, and you will use the web. All right, or if you just click here. Where is it? I always go there. It's probably it's the other. Yeah. So the web. So you connect, right? So this will be your first step, and now you'll simply paste your link into the window. Hit OK, right? And then Power BI will parse the data presented in this link on this web page, and will actually show you the data table. Okay, and then of course you will have to process it with PowerQuery, filter out some rows and so on. Right now we don't have the time to do all that, so maybe we'll do another webinar just for web scraping. To it gets a little technical, but if you do have questions, we can. expand on that in the Q&A section in the end, and yeah, we can maybe show you a couple of steps how to do that. But basically, you go here under Get Data and choose Web. That's your starting point. Once you have your data in, you will get some basic data. So in our case, we actually have some all the values from those basic base measures, additive measures here in our accounts, and we have created a separate account dimension. So those are the exact same names from the website, script from the website, with the full hierarchy. So we have income statement accounts. All right, so sales, COGS, SG&A expenses, EBIT, other expenses, and so on, right? So those are all P&L accounts or income statement accounts, right? And actually on the website, those are 3 different reports, right? So you've got an income statement report, a cash flow report, and balance sheet report. And what we've done here is we have actually appended all the 3 into one account table. So there's just one account dimension here that contains the income statement, but also the balance sheet and the cash flow and so on, right? And this is quite important to actually append everything together into one larger account table. Why? Because first of all, this will allow you to create reports where a user can simply switch between income statement and balance sheet and cash flow, right? So how is this done? This is simply a slicer that filters our report type, all right? Just because we have appended all the 3 different types of financial reports together. So that's the first trick that we have used, and then you simply use the report type. So if I now go into my DIM account, I have the report type here, right? So just show this. All right, this is cash flow. Of course, this is not because it's filtered, right? Okay, now this slicer has been configured to show just one, but the report type has obviously all the 3 values, and then it's just simply filtered, and this then in turn filters the accounts that are shown here. And that's the trick, how to have a switch to actually switch between the different financial reports. So that was the first thing here. Then we have the account group, accounts, and so on. And then we have some, helping columns. Basically that we use for filters, where to show certain types of accounts in which reports. Okay, so once you have this, so let me show you the model. Okay, so far we've loaded the financial statements. So this is the data, the numbers from the Wall Street Journal website, and the account dimension with all the 3, with the accounts for all the 3 financial reports. So this is the first step, and of course there's a one-to-many relationship here, and then we have some other stuff, right, that I'll explain later. So we also have comments that we have added. We have basically again scraped from the website, from different pages, and then we added a couple more, from the publicly available annual reports from those companies and so on. And we've collected all together in the comments table. So this is then another table in our financial model here. And then basically, then this is the key part. Then we have the KPIs. So some KPI measures, but also the dimension called dimension KPI, where we actually collected also the other financial KPIs that we calculated with DAX. So I'll explain this a little bit later. So, okay, so right at this point, we actually have our income statement. But so as you see here in the visual, so this is now the Zebra BI tables visual. And as you see, we have the data from previous year, the actual actual income statement compared to previous year, and some growth rates and so on, the comments, and also some calculated rows like gross margins and so on. Okay, so how do you do something like this? Let's try to recreate it. Okay, it will be quite easy with the Zebra BI tables visual. We do need, you know, a more advanced visual for this. In order to display the comments, the growth rates, and also add formulas like gross margin percent. Remember how I said that you must not, you know, load percentages directly into the Power BI model, because, you know, you'll most probably get wrong numbers, summed up percentages and stuff like that. Okay, so what you need to do, you start with the Zebra BI tables visual. Of course, this would also work with native visuals like native Power BI matrix visual and so on, but you'll have a much harder time and you will be limited. And we'll probably have to use a lot of DEX tricks to do this. But we'll start with the actual numbers. All right, we'll compare this to previous year. So we have a previous year measure. This is a standard measure in Power BI for the previous year, where we just calculate, you know, the values from the actual values that are shifted for 1 year back across the calendar dimension, right? So we just use the date add formula. We had many webinars for that, and in the end, I'll show you the links where you can find also other webinars to calculate previous year measures and so on. But we've done this so many times, I won't explain it now. So now we've got actual versus previous year. So the Zebra BI tables visual already calculated the growth from the previous year and the percent growth, so the relative growth to previous year. All right, so this is already out of the box in the Zebra BI visual, so I don't have to calculate all this with DAX and so on. So far, no DAX to present the basic report. All right, so then what we'll do is we'll use the accounts. All right, let's drop the accounts in. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So these are all the accounts. Of course, those accounts are grouped into a hierarchy. So let's use the account group. Okay, this will be enough, I guess. Let's collapse the entire field. All right, so these are my basic groups now. So as you can see, this is already starting to look like a P&L statement, right? An income statement. It's sorted by the actual. So let me just click a couple of times. All right, so this is now custom sort. All right, we've got the correct sort. So sales, revenue, COGS, and so on. All right, the first thing you want to do in income statements, balance sheets, and cash flow reports, you want to use vertical waterfall charts. Okay, it's very important to, you know, use the right charts for people to really understand the data, not just look at the numbers. Right here, it's very hard to see what's going on, how much revenue, how much is gross income compared to the revenue, and so on. You know, the moment where you switch to a waterfall chart and use the calculation waterfall chart, right? So which is a more advanced version of the waterfall chart. Okay, now I'm seeing something, but it looks weird, right? So it's a waterfall chart, just stacks the floating, bars one on top of the other. So that's why you use additional out-of-the-box functionality of the Zebra BI tables visual to fix this quickly. So just right-click and invert, or just say invert all children, because this is now, you know, under COGS, we also have, you know, a couple of different accounts and so on. So it's a hierarchical statement. But as you see, as soon as you invert this on the visual, right, the visualization will start to make sense. Now the cost of goods sold are subtracted from the revenue, right? And then we arrive at the gross income. So this is our very first result. So I'll just right click and mark result. All right, so this part is now understandable. All right, so this is the revenue, we subtract the cost of goods sold and we arrive at the gross income. All right, and then we do that for all the rest. So all the expenses basically have to be inverted, right? They have a negative contribution to the end results, to net income. So this is it. The EBIT is my next result here. So right now we are doing this for the Coca-Cola, right? And okay, some additional expenses here. This is also a type of expense. Oh, sorry, interest income. This is actually not income. Is this one also not? This is already like minus if it's all right. Equity, that's okay. Interest expense, invert this one, and we arrived at the pre-tax income. Then we have some tax. We need to invert this, so subtract the tax, and yeah, this is already consolidated net income. Again, some expenses, and voila, our net income is here. And then we also have EBITDA already pulled in from the Wall Street Journal website, and voila, now this makes a little bit more sense, because now let's maybe do it like this. All right, now we understand, this erosion of the margins, how much costs have been subtracted, what's left here. So it just simply visualizes the basic financial calculation here, and it's much easier to understand it. And also, of course, different businesses, if you go to a retailer, right, of course they have a lot of revenue and then smaller margins, much more cost of goods sold in the revenue as some other industries, of course, right? So this is then apparent here. All right, also very different from companies like Nike and so on, right? But okay, this already starts, is starting to show some picture here. All right, what next? Now I want to understand, all right, what's actually my gross margin in percent? All right, I don't have this in my data, right? So that's why just right click and I'll add a formula directly on the visual. So this is the easiest way to start adding financial KPIs to your reports. Simply type it on the visual. So this is called on visual calculations, on visual formulas. And we'll just say, all right, I want to add a gross margin. So percent gross margin. So this is like now gross income. The terminology is from the Wall Street Journal, gross income or gross profit, right? Divided by the sales or revenue. All right, so this one. Okay. And voila, let's make it, let's format this as a percentage, one decimal place. All right, let's highlight it by using a slightly different font color. Add this to the visual, and voila, we've got our first financial KPI added, right? And in the same way, you can now add EBIT as a percent of revenue, net income as a percent of revenue, EBITDA as a percent of revenue, and so on. Let's do one more for fun and for practice. So add formula. So this will be a percent net income, which is a net income divided by the revenue. Here it's actually called sales / revenue, and format percentage. And voila, let's pick. Yeah, all right, add this. And I've got another row. So you can simply add more calculations like this, and voila! Now we already understand much more. We understand the margins, right? So it's 60, 40, 6.1%. That's for Nike. Let's check Adidas. 42.1%. All right, that's quite close. Well, this was the first checks, but we'll do better comparisons with better visuals, with more appropriate visuals even for that. Okay, so this was the first part, and yeah, what else? I also had comments. So we've added some textual comments, as you see here. So how to pull your comments in? You need to collect them into a table. We've already done this on our previous webinar, so I won't repeat myself, but we have a comments table that that actually contains text comments, and those comments are linked to a specific account, like inventory, probably in this case, and then or inventory changes or something, and the company. So the account company and basically the date. All right. So you need to have this table, and then you use the comments. You can use the comments directly on the visual. So let's just open the table. One of the comments is the actual text of the comment, and you simply add this to the Zebra BI tables visual here in the comments placeholder. Right, actually, that's maybe not sorry. Sorry, that was not. It was not the right. I used the wrong version. I had some internal Zebra BI version here, so. But yeah, those are the comments here. All right, so you see comments, and so by default you'll get the comments in a pop-up window. So basically as a tooltip. But there's a special feature here. You can simply turn on the comment box, and now you have a nice display of the comments related to the right account or row item. All right, let me just delete this. So this is how we actually created the first income statements, and of course also with the switch, also balance sheet and cash flow statements. All right, here's a little trick with the logos. That's the next part here. Let me quickly explain this. How is this working? So of course, let's switch to Coca-Cola. I have a different logo here. So how does this work? This here is the native matrix visual. And all you have to do is get a link to the picture. And relate it to the right company. Okay, so that's why we have added. So we have a dimension of our companies. Okay, we basically just listed all the companies that we scraped, along with some additional data like the ticker symbols and so on, some IDs. But then we just added this column, all right, with the URL for the logo, and the format needs to be SVG. All right, so where do we get those logos? Let's go back to our web browser. Voila, this is the brandfetch.com website or service where you can find most of the world's brands, and you'll find the images like logos and so on. And once you click on the logos, select it, you will find the link here. So this is already the link. Make sure that the format is SVG. SVG, support vector graphics, that's the format you want. All right, and then just copy here, copy the link, put it into your table with the companies. Here we'll just copy all of those. So we just prepared this in Excel. Basically, we just added this column in Excel and pulled it in into Power BI. That's it. Very simple. Once you have this, you have a logo, the picture associated with each company. All right, and now It's very easy. You just take the matrix visual. I just add it here. You take the matrix visual. You find your company table with the column. Find the column with the link to the SVG, and just add this to your matrix. That's it. It works. So it will recognize that this is a SVG picture, and this is basically it. I mean, it's still the table, the matrix, the native matrix visual, right? And then, of course, you need to set some things like one helpful thing here is the image size, right? So here's where you can just set the width and, maybe a little bit larger and so on. So set the width and so on. You make sure to hide the column headers. This is a column header here. Unfortunately, you can't really hide it, so you can make it smaller and white and so on. So you need to deploy a couple of tricks, to get rid of all the borders and grids and so on. This is actually not a grid, but a border somewhere in the values, I guess. So just put everything to white, minimize it, put it to off, and here's your logo. But of course, this is now filtered because the company here is filtered. All right. If I switch the filter to something else, the URL, the different URL for this company will be returned. Straightforward, very easy, and that's the trick how to get the dynamic logo here. All right, okay, let's go on. All right, then once we have this, what's the next step? Now I only have one company here, right? And basically, now let's start benchmarking. All right, it's not a very good idea to let people switch between the different companies and so on. Okay, this is interesting if I'm looking at one particular company, but it's not useful for comparing, right? And benchmarking, that's all about good comparisons. All right, so what do we want to do now? We want to have companies side by side. So we already selected a couple of, so basically we have a list of companies here. So it's the same drop down here, the same slicer, okay? Only this time it allows the multiple selections, and here you can actually just select maybe 2 of them, right? And they are added in the table's visual here. So, how did they magically appear on the visual? To allow for this comparison, all right, we've used the company as a grouping field, all right? So all the ZebraBI visuals support grouping, much like the native matrix visual. So you can do similar things with the native matrix visual or with the ZebraBI tables visual, and you simply take your company and put it into the group placeholder, all right? This will create groups in tables. So it's basically a cross tab with several groups. And because, only 2 companies are selected here, voila, I've got a comparison side by side, General Motors and Tesla. All right, and it's already quite interesting. Now we can see a couple of things. All right, of course, much more revenue here at GM than Tesla. However, already when we come to gross income, the gap is like shrinking. So, it's already 30 versus 20 billion. So this is in billion, right? However, the relative margin compared to the revenue, right? It's much higher in Tesla than in GM. Like on average for the whole year of 2022. And then we go down, EBIT. Wow, here we already have 13 million, and here we have 10 million. So already with the on the EBIT comparison, Tesla actually has more value here. And now we've also put this little tooltip over the Zebra BI visual, and in the tooltip there's another Zebra BI visual. This time it's the charts visual to actually add the context. What's the growth of this KPI of EBIT here, and we can see, in the example of Tesla, phenomenal growth, right? It's just crazy. Heads off to Elon, and here with GM, also in green, but the growth is declining slowly, as you can see. So this is something you see, the time series, the longer time series. When you add more data, you add context. First you have the comparison. Now you understand much more than if you would. If you just looked at your own financials and just 1 year and comparison to previous year and so on, right? Now you're comparing yourself against a competitor, and now so you have another comparison, right? Each comparison actually adds to your understanding, right? Adds to your understanding. So the more context you give to your own numbers, the more value you can extract from the comparisons and so on. The more valuable the whole BI solution becomes, right? So this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing this webinar. And the more context you provide, also in terms of time series and so on, the more it will be understandable. All right. So back to EBIT. Yeah, we see now the margins here are basically, unfortunately declining. Unfortunately for GM, declining in the last year, but Tesla growing quite healthy. Looks quite impressive, actually. And now you can do the same here. So, and what is this here? This is just a bookmark. This is a simple trick. All right. When you select a pair of companies, we simply bookmarked this state with those two companies, and then we've used a slicer for those bookmarks. So basically, we have 4 bookmarks here for the 4 comparison pairs, and each bookmarks simply has a different selection of the companies in the drop down for the company selection. That's it. I mean, this is the trick here. All right. So this was the first attempt. This was our first attempt at the comparison. Let me just browse through the next thing. All right. Typically the income statements, would be reported in tables with lots of years and so on. So this is just one attempt at a classical table, but it's not just dull numbers that are really hard to understand and read and so on. So at least, when you have a table, use a visualization like at least a simple plus minus chart to understand the growth rates, right? So, okay, now I see some story here for the Walgreens company. What do I see? Actually, in 2020, tough times for everyone, COVID and so on, right? Declining revenue. From the previous year, so from 19 to 20, but then great growth from 20 to 21, right? 8%. So that was actually minus 10.9. Then it was like this, all right, and then from 22 year over year to 21, but more or less, not much growth, but more or less same level here, and so on, right? And the same thing here with the gross income and so on. And now, of course, you can at least see those comparisons for all the companies. Well, Walmart, it was not negative in 2020, but looks like the same pattern, great growth. 21, less growth 22. Okay, but again, you see, it's hard to compare this if you don't have all the companies at once on the same page, right? That's important. And also, like showing the trends, comparing years, it's still better to do it with charts. Okay, so my next attempt here would be actually to combine those approaches to combine the tables with charts on the same report page. So that would be my next attempt, where we actually have a short P&L. It's not actually a P&L. It's it is actually a short P&L with your revenue minus COGS, gross income, and so on. So we understand. So it's the basic income statement, very visual, very short, but then the trends are presented with charts. All right, and this is now the Zebra BI charts visual. And okay, so this is the Zebra BI charts visual that does a really good job at comparing and presenting multiple KPIs or multiple data categories on the same visual, right? We do understand now that for Tesla, first of all, everything looks green, so it's great growth in all the KPIs, right? So I see sales is growing, but also gross income, pre-tax income, net income, even more in terms of relative growth here, which of course it's not quite self-understandable, I guess. Well, compare that to General Motors, right? Yeah, that's the famous year of 2020, unfortunately. But then, yeah, recovering here with this year. But you see here, the sales revenue chart is so much bigger than the gross income chart, right? Okay, which means smaller margins. This is now scaled pixel perfectly, right? All those KPIs are presented in the right scale so that we really understand, all right, how much gross income compared to sales revenue and so on. So, net revenue is, of course, much, much smaller than the total revenue, right? But then, of course, if you want to really see the details here, you can still click. And that's the, again, out of the box feature of the Zebra BI charts visual that will just simply present a bigger chart to understand, all right, what's going on within, net income or other. So you can then simply browse through all the KPIs. But first, you have this understanding of the relations between those KPIs, basically, right? How did I do that? All right. You see, again, here, Zebra BI has the grouping placeholder. So it's basically the placeholder for to create groups of data categories in the chart. So without this, you would just have the normal, the normal charts. Like this is just one chart, right? Like that. So Zebra BI charts packs a lot of different chart types here. So, here's just one chart. It's just much bigger, right? But since you have space, and for the benchmarking purposes, it is, great if you can then just simply take your KPIs and put them into the grouping placeholder. Voila. This will be all of my KPIs, right? I think I have to have those were the KPIs. Let's go for the accounts, maybe account groups, right? So a little bit higher level. Okay, that's actually what I had. So the revenue, gross income, and so on. Voila. General Motors, Tesla, all in green. All right, let's check the Coca-Cola. Great. Again, famous year 2020. Not good for practically, most of the market, I guess, except some high-tech companies. But yeah, good growth here compared to previous year. So 10% growth of the revenue, 6.9, and so on. Versus Pepsi, all in green, also 2020, and so on, right? But it's a complete picture here. All right, so that's kind of the power of the visualization here. And now if you go one step further, now let's use this idea to actually compare now visually with the trends, the pairs. Okay, Coca-Cola versus Pepsi. All right, now we have actually 8 charts. So basically, I have the visual. It's still the same Zebra BI charts visual that now actually has 2 data fields in the grouping placeholder. Okay, so this one the previous one only only had the account groups, right? So it was just one dimension basically, and this is what's called the small multiples, all right? And now this one here, this is actually like an advanced version of the small multiples, because right now I actually have two fields. So basically I get a two-dimensional matrix, visual matrix, that has the company pair here and then all of the KPIs up, right? So now I can see, all right, the sales revenue, compare it to gross income, EBITDA, and so on, understand the situation in Coca-Cola. However, I can now visually compare it to Pepsi, right? So now it's getting interesting, much more revenue here at Pepsi, but okay, also gross income, EBITDA, getting closer, right? It's already, so it's still bigger here, but EBIT already larger in Coca-Cola than Pepsi, right? So yeah, now we'd have to dig deeper. You know, there are probably some some SG&A expenses, much higher with Pepsi than in Coca-Cola. I don't know, marketing expenses, something like that, or logistics or something. We would have to check, but we have all the detailed information, so we can do this analysis further on. Again, some comments. What were the drivers for this great sales performance in this year, and so on, right? Let's check a couple more. Yeah. GM versus Tesla. So the growth here, already saw that. Of course, much more revenue still, on the side of GM, but again, similar story already. It's the EBITDA, right? It's already close, getting closer, but then EBIT 13.8 compared to 10. It's already higher here with Tesla. All right, and these are just basic KPIs. In order to understand even better what's going on, now we need to add additional financial KPIs. All right, so in order to add those KPIs, and we've added quite a few of them, like net debt, inventory turnover, and so on and so on. We've used some decks, so I will share the decks with you. So first of all, just let me say that this was my data that we pulled in from the Wall Street Journal. Then we added a dislocated table. So this is a dislocated table. So first of all, we added the measures and a dislocated table for those measures, and we've simply done this with the DAX. All right. So this is in order for you to calculate an additional KPI like net debt, for example, you need to use some DAX. All right. So let me just show you the KPIs that we have. So these are the measures. So the dimension of KPIs. Voila. Let's just check the table. All right. We'll share all the formulas and everything. So this is just a list of the KPIs. So this is the dimension. These are the list of KPIs. So we've added, percentages. So as a percent of revenue and so on. But then we have return on investment capital. And cash flow conversion ratio, financial leverage, return on equity, return on assets, asset turnover, days sales outstanding, and so on, right? So first of all, here's a list. We simply prepared this list in Excel. So just Excel table, load it into Power BI. That's step number one. Step number two, calculate all the values for those KPIs, right? And we've used DAX for that. And this is now, let me say, so KPI measures, voila, we have it here. So this is the whole DAX statement that calculates all of those KPIs that I have shown before, right? So first of all, we just pulled in the revenue, all right? So we've used the switch statement, and we'll simply share the, the file, the PBIX file, and also the DAX formulas with you after the webinar. So you can simply download it and copy and paste it and so on. So basically, we just pulled in the revenue. So revenue is simply just it's just sales. Sales, that's just sum of sales from my fact table, right? Then cost of goods sold, same thing, right? But now then the gross profit, right? Gross profit, it's already calculated, so it's revenue minus cost of goods sold, and so on. And then where do we have something interesting? Let's find an example that is a bit more complex. So the margins, voila. For the margins, you just divide, like EBIT margin, just divide the EBIT with the revenue, voila. So just always use divide instead of the symbol for division, the operation. Just use the function divide. It's better. It handles errors better. Then net debt to EBITDA, voila. A little bit more complex, but it's like total debt minus cash like items, voila. So that's basically the net debt, and then you divide that by EBITDA. So in the end, I mean, it's like a couple of multiplications, minus, plus, and division, and with that you can calculate the basic, financial KPIs. You do that in a switch statement, voila. You switch the selected KPI with 1 to 3, and 1 to 3 is the ID of the KPI. So what are those numbers? Those are the numbers from my KPI dimension. Where is it? Dimension. For some reason, the scroller is not working in my mouse here. Voila. So you see number 1 and so on. Okay. Yeah, perfect. So this is how we calculated that, and now we simply use those KPIs here for the comparison. Of course, now we can do a lot more. We can analyze net debt to EBITDA. We can analyze the inventory turnover like that. And now, how do you compare that? You see here, what is this here? This is also a nice, maybe a little trick. So all the companies are listed here. And this is the third visual from Zebra BI. So this is the Zebra BI cards visual. And we've used it here, first of all, to quickly display, all the companies, the value of the inventory turnover, quick comparison, what's red, what's green. But then users can simply use it to click and filter, right? Because now I had all the companies here, and now simply with a couple of clicks, I can just select and start doing my comparisons. Walgreens versus Walmart, voila. Ooh, something going down here, but there's a comment, decrease primarily due to an increase of inventory costs and purchases, and so on, voila. Coke versus Pepsi. Let's do that, and we'll wrap it up. Voila. Right, inventory turnover for that. Of course, now you can just, compare the asset turnover, financial leverage, net debt to EBITDA, and so on, right? So now you're starting to do real financial analysis, not just looking at, your classical income statements, but actually calculating some KPIs that basically combine the data, pull data from income statement and cash flow and your balance sheets, and they provide much more value and much more understanding. All right, then in the file itself, if you will download the file, you'll find some more examples. So these are the EBITDA margins, and so this is a report based on margins and percentage KPIs, like cash flow conversion ratios, and inventory as a percent of sales. So this is also interesting. Factory lockdowns in Vietnam, and so on. Voila. Growth trends. All right. Comparing growth. So not just absolute, not just KPIs, but the growth of those KPIs. So this is only focused on growth. Who has growth on the revenue? All right, Walmart, Walgreens, as we saw, a couple of those, of course, in 2020, negative growth here, 10%, 10%, and so on, 11%. But then started growing again. Tesla, like amazing growth. It just dwarfed basically all the other percentage values here. But you see, you now have the relative growth, right? Over year growth in percent. You can compare it, and also like the absolute growth of all the KPIs here. Revenue, gross profit, EBITDA. This one's interesting. Yeah, EBITDA, comparing that. So that would be comparing the growth rates. And yeah, finally all the KPIs, and then comparing, KPIs. This would be more for financial folks or CFOs and so on. So having a table with all the KPIs and really analyzing, comparing different values here. Voila. All right. Okay, this is what we had prepared. I hope this gave you some ideas how to use the benchmarking data, not just your internal data, but your external data that is available out in the internet. Compare it with your own data, use it for benchmarking with your comparisons, comparing yourself versus the market, and so on. And we will also share all the DAX formulas, the list of the formulas. So this is the list of the formulas. This is the handout that we'll give you after the recording is ready. And yeah, just for the wrap up, a couple of takeaways that I would recommend. So just use benchmarking to add context to your data. It's can get so many insights. Add comments, right, to your reports, because the comments, they explain why. Sometimes, people want to understand, even you want to understand, okay, why is this now? Why is here a drop here in this year, and so on. And if you add qualitative information, text, and you integrate it into your reports, your dashboards and reports in Power BI will become so much more understandable. And so it's such a joy just, hovering over that little blue symbol, and, there's a text that explains exactly gives me the answer to my question, oh, why is that, right? And it's immediately there on the data, on the visual. Huge value in that. Use either on visual calculations, as I have explained in the Zebra BI tables visual. Just simply add formulas with the formula editor that we have, or use DAX to create KPIs. Use appropriate charts to visualize financial data. So use waterfall charts in tables, like vertical waterfall charts. Use Zebra BI charts to show the growth rates, year-over-year variances, and so on. You saw that this is very important. And also use small multiples. So use, visualize multiple charts, multiple KPIs inside one visual. So the Zebra BI charts visual is perfect for that. To allow the people to actually compare things. And with that, they will get much more insights. And with that, you will achieve actionable reporting, which is what we believe is necessary today, to unlock all of those insights that are simply lying there. And we need to find them by, of course, using the data, getting the data, and then also visualizing it in the proper way. Make sure to import the Zebra BI visuals from the Microsoft App Source. The basic version is free. It's just there. So you can simply go now and import the visuals, and you'll start working with them. And a lot of functionality is completely free. So you can just start using them. If you use some very advanced versions, you can also buy the Pro license for that. And we have a financial statements cheat sheet, and we will be sharing this webinar resources. So the recording, the PBIX file, and the handouts. So make sure to follow us either on YouTube or follow us on the LinkedIn. Just follow Zebra BI, to get notified and to get all of those resources. And hopefully also the Power BI template will help you. Just use it, change it, add your own companies and so on. Just use whatever you find valuable. All right. Any questions? Hopefully there was some discussion. Mark, would you help with the discussion? Were there any questions or
Yes,
in the chat and so on?
Yes, Andre.
How's the situation?
Thank you first, everyone, for sending the question, for keeping the discussion lively, and yes, we'll try to answer all of them. I know there's a lot of interesting topics raised, but maybe we can just start with a basic one. So, do we have help documentation or examples on how the data should be prepared to feed into these visuals?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, there are a ton of resources on the Zebra BI website. So I mean, it's let me just show you a couple of things. So if you go to zebrabi.com, there are a ton of free resources. Number one, I would say is the knowledge base. So if you're looking for specific answers, just go to Zebra BI and knowledge base. So that's one thing. Yeah, and here you'll find everything, for Power BI, Excel, PowerPoint, from all the basic things. Here's actually our Mark. Well, this is me and also Mark, and you'll find a lot of teachers here with, how to do the data modeling, how to prepare the data, what works best, and lots of tips and tricks and so on. So this is the number one resource I would recommend. Or even better, check out this one, the Zebra BI Academy. All right. So this is a full course, completely free. Okay. That will take you through the visualization and not sure what. Sorry, I have some plugins in my browser here. Okay. So basically, this is the course that will take you through best practices in reporting, but also best practices in data modeling in Power BI for different situations, not just financial reporting, lots of financial reporting, DAX and so on, but also sales and so on, right? So I should really stop this. So those are, I would say, the best resources that we have. Then we have the templates. So check out this one as well, templates. We can simply download templates where you can change your data for Power BI, for Excel, for PowerPoint. So lots of income statement reports, balance sheets reports, sales, social media, manufacturing, daily sales flash, whatnot, working capital, but also other more operational HR, sales funnel, and so on. So a ton of really nice templates to get inspired. And our webinars, right? So this was number 41. We keep all the recordings on our website. So if you go here, make sure to check a couple of past webinars. There's one on DAX. That's kind of related to the question, but also how to, if it's specific for the Zebra BI visuals, you'll find everything here also, some tips and tricks and whatnot. So lots of resources. Just go to zebrabi.com and then explore here the top links, basically.
Yes, and I would like to take it from here, right? Because what Andre is also showing on the screen now is the topic of the Power BI performance optimization. And this was also a question.
Was it a question? Yeah.
From one of you? Yes. It was basically a comment on yes, that this works really fast, but how does it scale with a lot of data? And we go through this in detail on
check this one. So, it's 1 hour of a webinar, but it's it'll give you it'll give you all the major guidelines, how to make sure that your reports will run faster. And with checklists, checklist for the reports, basically for the front end reports, dashboards, because you need to take care also for the front end. Why does it work so fast here? Because it's just one visual. It's one Zebra BI visual. And, in general, in Power BI, one of the rules for the reports, right, if you want them to run fast, you should reduce the number of the visuals on the page, right? If you will have a lot of small visuals on the page, it will be very slow. So, for example, that's why this is blazingly fast. I mean, look at this. This is just, and I can have, we actually have examples with 200 charts and so on, right? But because it is one visual that is highly optimized for speed, right? Because of course here at Zebra BI we take care of this. We try to optimize for speed with every version. This runs much faster than a report that would have like lots of separate charts and then additional elements and so on. So this is also one visual. So basically, those are just two visuals. One Zebra BI charts visual and one Zebra BI cards visual. So this is multi-card visual. It's like, it's 8 times faster than separate cards that you would put here. Plus, of course, that, it also has much better like user experience for selecting and things like that. But yeah, the speed is important. So just check this webinar here, not just for the front end, for the reports, but also how to make sure that your data model is fast. Because in reality, what we see with our, clients and people who come to us for advice, most of the time it's the data model. The data model is like the problematic or the thing that slows down the reports.
So there was 2 questions also regarding the data and how did we get it. So first one was, where did we get the company logos? That's
the Brandfetch. I've explained this, but we'll share also the website. So Brandfetch, that's a service that has the logos. So let me just go to the homepage. So that's Brandfetch, Brandfetch. Fetch the brand. Okay, just remember that.
And also, like this webpage allows you to actually to have an URL that you can embed directly, right? So it also allows you to do this. And there was a question regarding of how the fact table was created, how the account IDs existed, or you have created them manually. So basically,
Mark,
I can
go ahead.
Maybe quickly explain this. So basically, we created the account IDs in PowerQuery just by using some simple functions in PowerQuery. We kind of appended them and then just cleaned up the income statements, appended them one below the other, and then have all accounts IDs. Also for the groups. So it's just some basic data modeling in Power BI and then putting it all together.
Maybe one important thing to add here, Mark, right, is that you need to actually separate the accounts from the data.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's number one rule in data modeling, and that's the first thing that actually Mark did when he was doing this. Right. So to separate the facts, right, the fact dimension from this dimension, because in the report, when you fetch the data from the from basically a formatted report from the Wall Street Journal, just to explain this, right, you'll just get everything. You'll get this table. You'll get one table that has those accounts, and those are hierarchies and so on. And then there's the data. So this part here on the right part, this is the data, numeric columns, right? And this is these are the accounts. And you need to separate that. Like just imagine that you need to like cut it here between the numbers and the text, right? And then this part here must become a dimension, right? The dimension of all of those accounts, and it has hierarchies, right? And then this part here, the data for the years, this goes into the fact. So basically you pull it in one table and then you separate it in PowerQuery. Basically you just filter the columns, the left columns, and they will and create a dimension out of those accounts. And then the right part, all those numbers, they go into fact. And in between, you need to create the IDs, okay? And for that, I guess, Mark, would be a great webinar. Maybe we do the next one, how to do that.
Yeah, and also automated, because that was also a question, right? How did we
it? And,
can we like just scrape all the companies at once, and can you kind of automate it? So basically we kind of split it up, so you can just enter a company symbol and it gets the data automatically for you, right, within PowerQuery. But then you still have to kind of append those financial statements, right? It could be done that you would actually append all of them within the function that would kind of scrape the data. But yeah, that would require, of course, some different approaches. And in regards to building the accounts dimension and so on, there was also a question regarding the sorting of the accounts, right? Again, here we have to build custom sorting. So when we have an account column, right, we then also have an account ID column in the same dimension, and then we just simply sort the account by the account ID column, and that gives us. And we can also do custom sorting in that regard in Power BI. So yeah, we can have complete freedom within how we want to structure this.
So basically, what Mark is describing, I'm showing now here. So this is your account. So this is like the lowest level of data that is available, for example, on this web page, right? So you scrape this and you get the list of the names. And then in PowerQuery, you basically add a number, a sequential number. You just count the rows, right? And okay, we've added like 1001. It is the first account. 1002, 1003, and so on, right? So it's a sequential number, and this will be then your account ID, okay? And then in the end, then you use the account ID for sorting, right? So the sort comes from the website. It's already the right sort that was in the report. You just need to assign the sequential number of the row for each account, right? And that's just one, it's just one PowerQuery or M statement, just one step, and you add numbering of the rows for the accounts. And then you do the same for the groups. Right? Then you have the groups, and then you do the account group ID, right? So that also groups are sorted. And then in the end, you simply go, you have your account, and then you say sort by, you see account ID. And then when you use it in any kind of visual, either Zebra BI or native visuals, you can then use, this will be the default sorting. So you'll just get this sorting by default, which of course is very, very important in financial statements to get your sorting right in your reports, right? Start with revenue, go down to basically to the net income. So yeah, great question.
Yes, and regarding like further details, right? If you would want to kind of do a further drill down into, I don't know, departments and so on that Luis was asking, you would have to also bring this into the data model, right? So then, you can then of course drill down within the visualizations once you bring those data fields and then just place them into the visualization. Absolutely. You can also create separate pages for drill throughs, right? So to get details of the departments. You can also split it up by different KPIs and so on. So it's really exponential. You can build upon this, right? Okay, so there were some comments or questions about the comments actually, and there were questions. Can you format the comments? Can you what can you do with the comments? Can you change parts of them, make them bold, or what are the formatting
in
options?
the visual, like in the on the report?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Of course, there are lots of ways how to do it. Sorry. First of all, so first of all, you have this choice, how to use the comments. So sometimes you don't have the space here, and you can simply choose to have the comments, as those pop-up basically tooltips, right? So this will be the first thing, right? Then you can use the so-called comment box. So all the three Zebra BI visuals that I've shown, so the Zebra BI tables, Zebra BI charts, and Zebra BI cards, they have this comment box. And first of all, it's completely flexible. It's so easy to use. So just here, you have this split. Just make sure that you have the right amount of space. Next, many times, so most of the times, comments work really well on the right side because it's narrow rows are actually easier to read and so on. But in some cases, you need to place them in a different way. So you can place them below. That's also sometimes quite, but this would be already too long length. It's not so user friendly for reading. But in some cases, this would be nice, especially if you need them below and you have maybe a little bit more narrow visual like that. Maybe something like that, right? Okay, so this is one thing. So this is the placement. Then let me put it. Let's just go back. Yeah, then of course, there are like styling options. You can just add the drop shadow to make it more like sleek, like this. Then you have like gaps and so on. So like just basic, the padding, the gap. So the padding would be the outside border around this. Then you have the gap between the comments. What's the gap between the text? You can just make it pixel perfect basically, because some companies are using this also for public reporting, for annual reports and so on. You need to make sure that everything is formatted. Then this title is generated actually automatically by the visual. It will actually understand where which account is it, and it will provide this summary here. Okay, the sales revenue is 86 billions, and this is the growth rate and so on. And if you want to change this, you can simply click here to display like the relative variance and the absolute variance, or click once more. This will now be the absolute variance. This will be just the percentage. Then you can just click here to change the symbol. So you can have triangles, circles, you can have like arrows. So there are lots of options for that. And then of course, then you have like a ton of design options. You can change all the colors, custom colors, and you can change the text color. So the text, colors, and everything basically. So you can style it completely.
Great, Andrei. You actually showed my last question. So can you actually change the colors, because people always want to do this.
Yep.
But I want to just make sure that we kind of end on a nice phrase, because we only have 1 more minute, and then the webinar will actually close itself. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Andrei, for this awesome presentation. And yes, any last words, Andrei, Dylan?
Yeah, thanks so much for coming. Definitely, I invite you to follow us on the social media, because we are already preparing the next webinar. So make sure you go to LinkedIn and follow Zebra BI on LinkedIn, or subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter. Because further webinars are coming. We'll now increase the tempo. So the business year is coming to an end. It's exciting time for planning and reporting and so on. So we have a couple of interesting topics coming your way. So hope to see you on the next Zebra BI webinar.
Cheers. With 10 seconds to prepare. Cheers, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Bye.
Bye-bye.